truly thought they were going to die because of the size of the roots I had to cut. Hi, and welcome back to the Garden of Eden, where hunger is holy and so are you. I'm Reverend Allison. I'm a queer pastor. I am an eating disorder recovery, and I'm a beginner gardener. In this episode, we're going to give you an update on the grapes. We're also going to prune some of our tomatoes as well as the grapes. Okay, we have one task left. We are going to take this container that the grapes are in and transplant them into this container, which I should have trellised after I'd replaced the container, but it didn't really occur to me. Because I kind of forget that I have grapes. They have thrived only because I think they're partially in the shade for a lot of the day, or at least entirely in the shade for a lot of the day, which helps with our heat even in the summer. We get tons of rain in the place I am in zone 7B, but I don't really even know what grapes need to thrive. That's how little I care for them. Everything else I can tell you: how deep it needs to be planted, how much water, how much sun, companion planting, what kind of fertilizer, how acidic the soil should be. But these grapes, these are the Annie or the Matilda child of my garden. So we're going to try to be a slightly better parent to her and give her some fresh soil as well as a bigger pot in case she needs more room to grow. Okay, step one of any good gardening plan is to put soil into the pot. And this pot is just, I don't know, it might have been $5 at most. It's from Aldi's. So last year I clearly used some zip ties to hold this guy in place, which I don't think I did on purpose. What I know about grapes now is that would actually have been a really smart thing to do. Okay, how am I going to do this? Because the pot... Okay, look, do you see this? This right here is a root. I bet this is thriving because it grew out of the pot. Yeah, look, now you can see it. Oh, I don't want to damage the root. Okay. I think the next appropriate course of action is just to cut the pot off of the plant. Oh, I definitely just broke these. Protect him. How did you get into this pot, my friend? Another earthworm cameo for Heather, who asked for it. It was an accident, but... Okay, so this is like the main root ball. And then these two pretty good sized stems grew out of the pot so they grew in these, through this drainage hole into the earth, which means A, the pot was definitely too small for them. And B, I now have to dig it up. If I still have grapes when this is over, it will have been a miracle. Oh shoot, that's what I was trying to avoid. Okay, I think the smartest thing to do is just to cut this as far down as I can get it. And then pray that it does okay in this other pot. Wow. It was supposed to be just putting the root ball into this pot of soil. Half of this soil is what it was already in. I do need to dig it down deeper though. It would appear it wants some pretty deep roots, so let's try and help with that. Okay, well, we survived the easy transplant of the grapes. If you love watching plants get murdered, I guess this is the episode for you. I hope that grape is all right. I'm very skeptical because the roots I had to cut were very large, like as big around as my pinky was the small one. The bigger ones were probably closer to like my middle finger or thumb. I promise to never be a channel that does clickbait. And it's important for me that you know from a place of integrity that when I shared at the end of the last video, like, what will happen to the grapes? Are they dead? It's because I filmed that and then left the next morning and was gone all of last week on spiritual retreat. And so I, truly thought they were going to die because of the size of the roots I had to cut. So A, I genuinely thought they were going to die, and B, I also wasn't here, and so I also did not know if they were okay or if they were dead. So I hope you know that I was also anticipating their future resurrection alongside you. to plant some tomatoes. We're also going to prune some of our tomatoes. Okay, all of this soil is really wet, which is a good sign, because we're technically in a drought right now. I'm trying not to murder these carrots. Okay, this is a Better Boy, which is a Best Boy hybrid. That needs to be deeper, doesn't it? Again, we're trying to get as many roots. I'll show you this root system, which does look pretty good, which is exciting. We are going to plant this pretty deep. Put this guy in between the twine, which hopefully is enough to hold him up for a while. Oh! Number, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yes, number 7 of 8. Okay. Next is another San Marzano. Got my smaller cutters, but I'm going to use this to show you where a sucker is. And a sucker is called that because it sucks the energy and life from it. So if you look right here, you see how there's this main stem. There's a clear big stem coming off of the main stem, and then there's almost something in between them. That's a sucker. So you can see a more established one down here, because I didn't get to it last week, and I'm just going to snip those off. Because what those do is suck energy from your plant and sort of confuses it on where to send its energy. I'm also going to cut some of these lower branches just completely off of this plant, because I want to be able to trellis it a little bit more. Now remember, if I took a hill of dirt and planted it here at the base of this tomato plant, here, more roots would grow off of it. So the tomato plants are fairly resilient on their own. So I could cut this one off, and I may go ahead and do that. Right here. Because right now I want the plant to get taller and bushier. And I want to take away things that, all these down here that can touch the ground could potentially make this plant sick. So these could potentially make it sick, but also it spends extra energy growing these. So there's a couple over here oh, there's another sucker I'm gonna leave. But I may cut this one back, for example, in the back of the plant later as it gets bigger. Right now it still also needs the leaves to engage in photosynthesis so that it can keep growing up and out. So right now I'm trying to tell it to grow up before it grows out, at least down at the bottom of the plant, because this will give it more airflow down here, which will also decrease the onset of blight. I cannot say that it will completely get rid of the blight. In some climates that would be true, but not in mine. Okay, same with this one. We're gonna cut off all the stems here on the lower portion, including the suckers. So that's a good example right here. This was a main stem. Oops, I just pulled it off. And this was the sucker growing from the same little elbow. So we're gonna cut all of those low to the ground that are big enough to sprawl out and touch the ground, because we don't want them making the plant sick early on. Here's also another little sucker we're gonna cut. Okay, so this is also an Amish paste, like the last one we just cut. You can see it's a little bit smaller. It is getting a good bit of water, so I'm not entirely sure why that might be. But I'm gonna start by cutting some of these lower leaves here, because we don't need them and it has a greater likelihood of making the plant sick, especially as it keeps getting bigger. In the beginning, I wanted to leave these because I wanted the plant to use the branches for wind barrier support. But now it's getting big enough that we can just tuck it into this trellis and trust it to keep growing upwards. So by later next week, this plant will probably be close to this string that you can't even see in this. It'll be close to up here. And we're gonna, because I didn't plant these down the middle like the trellis that I built, these could struggle a little bit more in the beginning. They're gonna have to grow long ways, but these tomato plants, all these hairs on them remind us that these are what would grow something if it was laying down, but also reminds us that tomato plants in the wild don't grow up like this. They grow like a vine down on the ground, which means that because they're a vine, you can convince them what direction to grow. And so we're going to convince these to grow up. This is a Bikini pepper, is I think how you say it. It was one of my free seeds from Baker Creek. I will admit, it took me forever to get these to germinate. Like almost a whole packet before I finally broke down and bought a heat mat. The other one is a bell pepper. This one is much more established. It didn't need the pepper, or it didn't need the heat mat to start germinating and then continuing to grow, but it definitely did better when it had a lot more light and the heat mat. Same with this little guy, which barely has 3 leaves, so technically I shouldn't transplant it yet, but I'm going to. Because it is way hotter outside than it is in my house. I keep my house in the mid-60s most of the time. And it's consistently in the 80s, almost 90s right now. And so I know that the ground is warm enough. I know that the peppers will thrive better outside than they will in my house. So we're just gonna plant it here, where it will take a little bit longer to get big because of all the things around it, but also pepper plants are just slower growing. And so we're going to plant it around these onions, which I should be able to pull, I think sometime in May, as soon as they start flopping over. But for now, it's just going to rest here with some of the strawberries. So it has enough room that it needs to grow. Wow, there's so many strawberries in here. This is so exciting. You can't see them because they're mostly off camera, but I promise they look really good. I really couldn't close this episode without naming something that's different. I had to buy new overalls, which I know is supposed to be a perfectly neutral thing in recovery, but if I'm honest, it was really hard that the overalls I bought last summer don't fit this year. But the reality is, I need to have clothes that fit me for the body I have now and the work I'm doing now. And being in the garden is hard enough, especially later in the summer when it gets super hot and the humidity is in the 80s. The last thing I need is to also feel uncomfortable in my clothes. And so this is me being transparent and telling you I had to buy new overalls because my old ones didn't fit. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with my old ones, but the truth is, the healthiest thing for me to do is just to let them go, to donate them and trust that they will find their way to the next right person who needs them, whether it's for gardening or just for a cute outfit to wear in the summer. Let me know in the comments, what kind of pro-recovery or anti-diet culture choice have you made this week? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey in the garden and my journey to recovery.